Hi guys. One of the things that I firmly believe and I try to live my life by is I look at human beings and I think, well, that human being has a story. That human being has a story. All humans have a story. And what that means for me is that I'm curious. I'm curious about other people. I'm curious about their stories. Not that I'm trying to pry or anything, but I like to ask questions. And if people want to answer them, I can have a conversation, get to know more about a person, or put it another way, I get to know more about their story. And that's what I believe. I believe that we all have a story, and that our stories are important to us because they shape us, that they give us meaning and they give us purpose. And some people argue, you could argue, that what sets us apart from animals is that we are storytellers. Some people use the term that we are narratival animals. And stories, they connect us to others in interesting ways. I've sat down with different people and I've talked to them about their stories, and I've seen different connections, and that's what I love. I love learning about these surprising connections that I have with other people I've never met before, just by getting to know their stories. And so stories are important to us because they give us meaning and identity and purpose, but stories, they also shape us in profound ways. And not only do I believe that we as human beings have stories, I believe that God has a story as well. And I actually think that our story is meant to collide or meant to fuse with God's story. Not that if that happens or when that happens, that our story as a human being is dissolved and we lose our own sense of identity. But actually, I think that our true identity is released when it collides or fuses with God's story. Anyway, that's what I believe. I believe there's something powerful happens when two stories become one. When our story connects with someone else's, another human being, or when it connects with God's, that there's something powerful happens. And part of what is powerful that happens is that we are shaped. And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse, but whatever happens, we're shaped when our stories connect. And we're shaped, or another way is to put it, we're formed. And I think ultimately we're formed, and we're designed to be formed by our stories colliding or fusing with God's story. And you might think, oh, Ken, what about this idea of forming or shaping? What are you going on about there? Well, I think that we are always being formed, that we're always being shaped. And, we might like to think that, no, we're a finished product, we're done and dusted, we're taken care of, we've reached the finish line. But I think that actually, even if you think that, we're still being formed, we're always being formed. And it's not a question of if I'm being formed, it's a question of who is forming me and why, for what purpose are they shaping me. So, particularly in the Western world, we value individualism, and we think we're a self-made man or self-made woman, we can make it on our own. But no matter how high we lift the idea of individualism in our Western world, I think we're molded by others. Actually, no man or no woman is meant to be an island, or is an island, in fact. Friends, media, social media, popular culture, school, work. Sometimes all those things are shaping us, right? Sometimes we're aware of that pressure. The good, it's not necessarily bad. There can be good pressure. There can be bad pressure. But sometimes we're aware of that pressure that's put onto us to change, to be formed into something others want us to be. But often we're not aware of it because it's always happening. A fish doesn't know it's wet because it's always in water. Or right now, wherever you are, at sea level anyway, right now there is 1 kilogram of pressure pressing on every square centimeter of your body, and you don't even notice it, you don't even feel it. But it's happening. But what if, instead of being passive with this pressure that's shaping us and molding us, maybe according to someone else's agenda, instead of being passive, we took the proactive route, and that we were active in our formation process, and we became aware of what is shaping us. One of the greatest factors for our shaping, for our formation, of molding us into the human beings we are right now, for better or for worse, is family. Families form us, families shape us, families disciple us, they give us identity and they give us rituals. It's all part of the shaping process. And this formation that comes through family is because of a special type of relationship, right? People, or in the ideal family, and I know that not everyone has an ideal family, but ideally people are in your family, your family members, they have a desire for your welfare, and that they spend time with you. They share space with you, so they're around a lot, and they're close, they're proximal, and they often, families can share a common vision. We're going somewhere together, we're planning together, we're working as a team. Let me read to you a bit about the Bible, which maybe not on at the surface of it is about family, but it is about family. So let me read it to you. Actually, it's famously known as the Lord's Prayer. Let me read it out to you. Matthew 6, chapter 9. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So, if our story collides with God's story, and I submit to you, or at least I think, in my opinion, our story is meant to collide, is meant to fuse with God's story, and that happens when we make a commitment to Jesus, when we give Jesus our allegiance, we treat him as our king. Then when that happens, if our story collides at that point of allegiance, at that point of commitment, then we open up the possibility, the potential of our story being deeply shaped, deeply formed within God's story. And a crucial part, because God has a vision of who we're meant to be. God has a desire, and the Bible uses imagery of God's hands shaping us like clay. And so maybe a crucial part of that shaping, of that formation, is when we move into a new relationship with Jesus, we also enter into a new set of relationships with those who also call God Father. Just like in that prayer, our Father. When committing to Jesus, we are invited into the family of God, which is the church. The church as family is meant to be a community of formation. And so the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples isn't my Father who is in heaven, but it's our Father who is in heaven. It's the plural, it's us together. And of course God is my Father, but he is our Father. And that's the way we're taught to pray. You know, we can have true community. We can have true family. No matter what our community has been in the past, no matter what our family has been in the past, good or bad, because of who Jesus is. Jesus is true human, the prototypical human. Jesus is the true God, and he's the true King. And we can have true community, true family, because of the gift of his Spirit. And what's special about this, of what the church can be, sometimes it falls short of this, you know, and I've experienced that. I'm sure you have too. But what's powerful about the potential of the church is that it doesn't matter what language you speak, what level of wealth or education you have, your skin color, your gender, your race. The church is the multinational, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-generational family of God. And you know, in natural families, I'm a father makes a difference in the identity of the family. And it's no different for the family of God, the church. The church reflects, or at least it should reflect, who God is. It's like, I want my kids to reflect well on the Johnston name, and they do a very good job of that. And, you know, but they're not perfect, which is fine. I'm not perfect either. But just like I want my kids to reflect the Johnston name, I believe that the church is meant to reflect, or at least should reflect, who God is, God's name, that he is compassionate, full of loving kindness, gracious, welcoming, hospitable, concerned for justice, and forgiving. You know, that's also part of the prayer Jesus taught his disciples. Jesus says, pray this, and forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors. You know, our new family relationships in the church have the potential to deepen and grow, and particularly so in redemptive ways through forgiveness, where injured or unlikely relationships can become stronger and flourish, empowered by the Holy Spirit, and possible because of Jesus' death and resurrection. You know, forgiveness is necessary in our natural families. Forgiveness is necessary in the family of God, the church. Now let me say this, the church doesn't replace our natural family. We're not pushing it aside and saying, forget those guys. Of course not. But the church, while the church doesn't replace our natural families, it is the people who pray our Father with us. I pray the prayer, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name, with people who look very different to me. Different skin colour, different parts of the world, different languages, different periods in history. And we're a family. Despite our difference, there's something that brings us together as a family. It's our Father who is in heaven. You know, let me be clear, there is potential for abuse in the church, and as in any family. And a healthy view of leadership, actually, and a healthy view of power as for those who serve, having a personal relationship with the Holy Spirit as our guide, and accepting varying expressions of church life can assist in keeping the desire for each other's welfare forefront. So while there's potential for abuse, the way to guard against that is to healthy view of leadership and power, having a personal relationship with the Holy Spirit, and accepting that things are going to be people are going to do things differently. It helps us to stay away from some of those temptations to use our power in unhealthy ways. Actually, a healthy church family doesn't want to control. A healthy church family wants to serve you, and wants to empower you to see you flourish. So I think that's a great vision for family. I think that's a great vision for a family of people who can say that prayer together, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. That vision of, you know what? This family is here to be a part of our formation, be a part of my formation, be a part of my shaping. That they're not here to control me, but they're here to empower me and go on this journey with me. I think that's a great vision of who we can be as human beings in the family of God. But maybe you disagree, and that's fine. And this is your chance to share your opinions, whether you agree or disagree. Just got some questions here for you, and they're kind of like just to kick off the conversation. Maybe the conversation will go in other directions, and that's fine. We'd love to get your feedback. But let me start off with this first question, a bit of an icebreaker. What's a good way that your family has shaped you? You know, not all families are great. You know, sometimes every family has an element of dysfunction somewhere, some more than others, and that's the world we live in. But no matter where we're from, was there a good way that your family has shaped you? I'd be interested to hear some of your stories. Next question. What do you think of the idea of church as a community or a family of formation? Community of formation or family of formation? Something that shapes us. An instrument that is used by God to mold us to be who we can be, to reach our potential. Is there something comforting about that idea? Is there something challenging about that idea? The church as family. Is there something even confronting about that? I don't know. I'm sure we all come from different perspectives. Love to hear your ideas. Finally, discuss amongst yourselves why so many people think Jesus is okay. You know, I come across this in my life, my work, in the world. People think, Jesus is pretty cool, but church, church is boring. Church is no good. Church, they just want your money. Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think people have a high estimation of Jesus, but the family of Jesus, the church, is kind of seen as not living up to who Jesus is? And then along those lines, and maybe there's an element, maybe this is kind of answering that question a bit, but what have you seen that helps to keep families healthy? What have you seen to help keep the family of God healthy? Love to hear your ideas on that. All right, thanks guys, and see you next time.